Hey, welcome and thank you for joining us.
We want to introduce you to the future of Service Autopilot in 3 phases.
We are rolling out a new version of Service Autopilot in 3 phases so that we can establish a new foundation. This foundation allows us to quickly deliver to you the functionality that you've long been asking for.
And you'll be able to move between version 2 and version 3 of Service Autopilot very easily.
This allows us to minimize your learning curve and your team's learning curve so that you can quickly adopt the new version of Service Autopilot.
This is a huge leap forward for Service Autopilot. We are a long way from the storage unit that we started in.
Chris Sims is going to show you exactly what's included in each of the 3 phases so that you know exactly what to expect.
After that, a message from our support and training departments. They're going to show you how we're going to move you into this new version of Service Autopilot that is faster and easier to use.
And finally, to round out the evening, we're going to give you the release date. We're going to tell you when Phase 1 will be released. So stay tuned.
Hey everyone, my name's Chris Sims and I'm the product owner here at Service Autopilot. And I'm going to show you around today a little bit of version 3. Now we plan to release this initial patch of version 3 in 3 separate releases, and so I'll talk about what's going to be in each one of those. So let's start with what we call R1 Release 1. And I want to start with the accounting screens. We call them internally the Core 4. It's essentially invoices, payments, credits, and checks, which is a QuickBooks Online only feature. So let's dive into the accounting screens and show you a little bit of V3. So as you can see here, I'm on version 2, or what appears to be version 2. I'm in a staging environment, a testing environment really, and I'll show you what it looks like to navigate between the V2 screens and the V3 screens. So I'll just simply hover over my accounting menu and click Invoices. And as you can see, it loads up the invoice list, and this is the new look and feel of Service Autopilot. And so I want to show you some patterns here, but before I do that, I want to talk about this bar. I know for a lot of people, it's sort of scary and intimidating to have a new version coming out because this is an operational software and you use this to run your business. And so what we've done is built in a way for you to switch back and forth between version 3 and version 2. We really encourage you to use version 3 so you can give us feedback and also just get used to using it, because there will come a time where it will only be version 3. But we've given you this tool because we don't want to disrupt your businesses that much. And so you can see here I have a button that says not ready for this design, and it says switch back. If I click that, what will happen is it will route me to version 2 of the same screen that we're on. So we'll let it route us back here. And there we go. You can see we're back on version 2, and every single screen that has version 3 released will be reverted to version 2. And if I want to go back, it's very simple. I can just click try it out. Again, we highly recommend that you do that. And so it loads version 3 back up for us. So let's talk about some patterns that you hopefully will start to notice, but that we've been intentional to keep consistent in version 3. This is what we call a list page. We're on the invoices list. And so it has a very similar look and feel that any list page in Service Autopilot will have. So your payments list, your credits list, your contracts list, your client list, all of these will have a very similar look and feel, and the functions of them will also be the same. And we've chosen to do this so that it becomes easier to learn Service Autopilot for not only new users, but for new employees of your companies, so that if you bring somebody on board, they can get up and running quickly in the software. So as I said, this is a list page, and the first pattern I want to point out here is that our filters are on the left. Before they were up here on top in version 2, now they're on the left in every single list page. So I'll click on All Save Filters, and this is really cool. This is not only replacing but enhancing the functionality of what we used to call screen views in version 2. As you can see here, we have populated or pre-populated some commonly used filters for each list page. So we're on the invoices page, and so we can see invoices that need to be charged, just like in version 2, invoices that need to be email. In version 2, these are tabs on the invoice list, and now they're common filters. But also, I can have my own. And so let me go back, or actually I'll just choose one really quick. Let's choose Open Invoices. And it automatically applies all of the filters that are a part of that filter set. And so let's say I wanted to add a new filter to this rule. Well, I could just click Add Filter. And now let's filter down to Sammy. So I'll add an account type filter, and we'll say it contains Sammy, and we'll click Update. And so now it'll come back and give me all of Sammy's open and past due invoices. So another pattern that you'll see is actions. So right now we have nothing selected, and our filters are on the left. But if I were to choose some options in the list here, like let's say invoice 814, my filters gets replaced with some actions. And we have primary actions here at the top, secondary actions here, and under advanced actions is where you can do some other stuff that you do less frequently, such as export or merge or void or delete. Also the reminders here, this is synonymous with the functionality in version 2 of needing to print, needing to email, needing to review. We've renamed them reminders. We felt like it was a more human term that, again, new users would be easy to understand what it meant. And so I can clear flags just like I would. I can lock my invoices, mail them, this is mail on demand, etc. So again, you will see this pattern in every single list page in version 3. When nothing's selected, you have your filters. When something's selected, it changes to your actions. There's always an advanced actions section that will give you some of the less commonly used actions that you might take. And the more important actions are sorted here to the top. We've also used color very sparingly in version 3, again, to sort of instruct the user on what is more commonly used. So if I want to add an invoice, we're calling that out in the loudest color on the screen with this big orange button here. Also, charging cards is very important. That's how you get your money. And so charging cards gets the second most attention. And then some other things like emailing and print gets a little bit less attention. Another rule that we've created in version 3 is that if an item is blue, you can click it. There is nothing blue that you cannot click in version 3. And so in this example, I could click the name of this invoice here, and it would take me to that invoice. Or I could click the name of the account, and we'll talk about this word account here shortly. I could click the name of the client essentially, and it would take me to that client. So let's again take a look here at invoice 814. So I'll click 814, and it pulls up the invoice review screen. This is another pattern that is all throughout version 3. Every single record in version 3, be it a client or an invoice or a payment or a job, etc., now has two different modes. It has a review mode and an edit mode. This is actually not a good example because this invoice is locked. Let me find another one that's not locked. Okay, perfect. So this is invoice 780, and right now I'm in review mode. If I wanted to edit this invoice, I could click, again, my actions on the left, I could click edit, and it takes me into the invoice edit screen. And we've done this very intentionally because we know in your companies there's different people that have different roles and need to see and do different things. And over the years, we've realized that that can be extremely complicated and it can be very granular in terms of the rules and user roles and rights, essentially, that you give your employees. And so we've now made it possible where every record can be reviewed but not edited, if that is your desire. So let me close this down and take us back to the review. Now, another pattern that we've created on all of our review screens is that you can easily move between records straight from the review screen. So here we see that we are filtered down to Sammy's invoices. And I'll click on the very first one in the list and notice the arrows here on the right. If I were to click this, or a handy shortcut is just using the arrow on my keyboard, it will take me to the next invoice in the list. And I can essentially just thumb through every single invoice in the list. It's really cool. So you use all these tools in combination to quickly review items. So back on the list, you can set filters to whatever you want, all of your open invoices, all of your need to review invoices. That's a really good example. And then you can just click on the first one in the list and quickly thumb through them. And as you can see, this is really fast. And I'm on my staging environment, which is not even, it has nowhere close to the processing power that our production servers have. And so in the production environment, this is going to be even faster. Okay, so that's invoices. We'll talk about payments. Again, you'll see a lot of very similar features here. This is a new feature that we have if you haven't applied any features, or excuse me, any filters to the list. In my previous list, I had a filter set. Right now I don't, and so we just give you a quick option to choose a save filter. And so let's say I want to look at all of my check payments, or I could have had my own save filter, and it pulls up all of my check payments. And again, we have all of the same patterns here. We have our list, we have our filters on the left, our add button on the right, and if I check items, it gives me actions. So let's pull one of these payments up. This one's unapplied. As you can see here, I see the payment information. Now, this is a $0 payment, so this is not a good example. Let me find this one. Okay, so we have a $75 payment here, and let's say I want to apply this to invoices. So I can click my edit button and go into edit mode, and it pulls up all of Justin Berg's open invoices. And so I can select the ones that I want to apply it to, and click save. And now it takes me back to my payment review and shows me in the grid which invoices it's been applied to. Again, my pattern of we call these chevrons, but essentially my next and back buttons, I can click that and it'll take me to the next payment in the list. And you can see this is a payment that has multiple invoices applied to it. So let's close that down. So I will skip over credits and checks. They're both very similar, all the same patterns: a list, your filters, your actions when something's selected, a review, and an edit. You'll see those patterns in all of those screens. Now let's talk about some new functionality coming out in the first release of version 3. And that's forms. And we're really excited about this. And so let me navigate to forms. Now, something to keep in mind about version 3 of forms is that initially they will not be compatible with version 2 of forms. And so we do foresee there being an amount of time where you're using some V2 forms and using some V3 forms. We know it'll take some time to get all of those replaced. And so again, you can just click the switch back button and it'll take you to version 2 and show you all of your version 2 forms. But you will not see your version 2 forms in the V3 forms list. That's one case where that's true. That's not true for your invoices and payments. You'll see the same invoices and payments in both versions. But essentially, we've added so much new functionality to version 3 of forms that they're literally just not compatible currently. We are exploring options to convert those for you. But if you're really excited about version 3 of forms, I would recommend that you go ahead and take your most important forms and create them anew in version 3 and take advantage of all the new features. So let's build a new form. Again, I'll point this out over and over, but you can see the same patterns. You can see that there is a high level of consistency in version 3 that frankly just doesn't exist in version 2. And we've been very intentional with our design patterns and rules that we're sticking to make the system feel a little bit smaller. Because over the course of 10 years, the system has had a ton of new functionality added to it. And frankly, it's just reached a point where it's hard to keep track of all of it if the designs and the patterns aren't super familiar and consistent. So let's add a new form. And it takes me into a template selection. Now, this does exist in version 2, but we've put a lot of emphasis on it in version 3. We really think that people will prefer to start with templates. And so we've given you this entire screen that's solely based around choosing a template. And these are ones that we're going to initially release with. We'll be adding more over time. You will eventually be able to download templates directly from the marketplace, not in the initial release, but in future releases. So let's just start with this basic estimate request. Of course, if you wanted to start with a blank form, you could click this button here. As you can see, we've kind of hidden it, not hidden it, but set it back in the design because again, we think that you'll have an even better experience if you start with a template. So we'll start with this first one here. Click next. Oh, I'm sorry. I clicked next on the form itself, not on the builder. The troubles of a live demo. Okay, so I've clicked next and now I can give my form a new name or I can stick with the name of the template. I'm going to give it a new name, call it my demo form. And it takes me into the new form builder. Now, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time talking about every single little button that you see on here. These are insanely powerful. We've added a ton of new functionality. I just want to call out some of the bigger ticket items. The first thing that I want to call out is you'll notice now that these forms are much nicer looking. This builder is a true what you see is what you get builder. And so you can make these forms look any way that you want. We've even allowed you to modify the CSS and add your own personal CSS classes. If you're a web person and you really know how to dig into the web element of a form, you can get extremely advanced with these. But if you're not that person, you have all of the what you see is what you get tools here. You can toggle descriptions for fields on and off, placeholder text on and off, whether the field is required. You can modify the field width with this slider here. And as you can see, these, I'm so proud of how this turned out. It's just so slick. And this form builder, to me, rivals form building software that you see out there. That's all it does. Where those companies they do nothing else but build forms. And our guys here on the automations team that have built this new product, they have really just killed it with this. And so I'm very excited about it. So again, that's a big feature. What you see is what you get. The forms are now very pretty. I guess they could be ugly if you intentionally built them ugly, but it is truly what you see is what you get. The next thing I want to point out here is this section here. We have added multi-page forms to Service Autopilot. So right now, we're looking at page 1 of this contact information form. If I click on this, it'll take me to page 2. This is page 3. I can add as many pages as I want. And what's really cool about this, what's super powerful, is I can use this tool here that says rules to add rules that determine what pages a user gets sent to in the form. So for example, I'm not going to take the time to build this right now because we're honestly kind of running short on time here, but I can have this form send me to an entirely separate page if I select service A here than if I select service C. And so you could do things like build one form that takes a user down one route if they're a commercial client and down a totally separate route if they are a residential client. It's really cool. It's really powerful. Another thing that we have implemented here on version 3 of Forms that I'm really excited about, it's only here for the time being, but we do plan on adding this to other screens in the system. And that's this button to save a draft. In fact, we've implemented a really new feature, really cool, and that is automatically saving your drafts. So if I were to be sitting on this screen for about 5 minutes and I didn't touch anything, I didn't move, the system would automatically save that draft. So the example is that you start working on a form and you go off to lunch and you don't save, you forget to save for whatever reason. You come back from lunch and you kind of forget what you were working on before lunch and you close out the page, or you close your browser out. Previously, you would have lost all of that. Now we will have automatically saved your last draft and you can pick up where you left off. Again, this is only currently in Forms in version 3, but we plan to add it to other screens. So I'll just kind of show you around some of the other features here. We have now added a way for you to send multiple email notifications on Forms. Currently, you could only send it to like one person. You could send one to the person that filled out the form and then one to another role. I can add as many email notifications as I want to this form. So I can send one to myself, the form builder. I can send one off to maybe my web person or the owner of the company or whoever. It's really powerful. There's no limit to how many email notifications that you can send out here. The account management section is where we allow you to choose whether or not you want Forms to create new leads or new clients. There you go right there. You can see that automatically popped up for me. I didn't have to do anything. It saved my draft automatically. I can choose if I want to replace new data, if I want to replace old data with the new data that they fill out on the form, or if I only want to add new data to a record. Like I don't want to replace what they already had, but on this new form, let's say they filled out a piece of data that I didn't have before. Like I only had their email before, and now they've given me their phone number. It can only add that phone number if you so choose. We've also built in customizable account matching. And so this is where I can say how the system should look to try to find a duplicate in Service Autopilot. So I could say, okay, only if the first name that they enter and the email that they enter, if both of those match, that means they're a duplicate. But if not, then they're not a duplicate. Or I could be less strict and say only use the email address to match. It's totally up to you. I can even choose custom options. So if I click Other, it now lets me choose from any, it looks like we got a little bug there that we got to work out. but I can choose fields on the form that I want to match on. So if I had some, like state, for example, or zip code, I could plug that in and have the system check to see if the zip code that they entered matched the zip code that was currently on file, and then it would mark them as a duplicate. So it's really cool, really powerful. The publish section here, we now give you some warnings if we think that you might want to go back and change some stuff, like maybe you forgot to map a field, like you create a form to capture a lead and you forget to map the email address to the correct field in Service Autopilot. We now give you a warning to let you know to go back and fix that. And then also, we have a lot of cool publishing options. You have a hosted form, an embedded form, and then the source code. This is similar to what we do today. There are mobile options. You can now connect forms to accounts specifically. So if you have like a commercial account that has a form that they want you to fill out every single time you go to that property, then you can create a form just for that account. That is new functionality. Currently, it's only for services. And then, of course, timesheet actions. This is similar to what we have today. We now have office-only forms. Again, that can be filled out on accounts. And I'm using this word accounts, and I haven't explained it to you yet, but essentially accounts in version 3 are clients and leads. And then mobile and office forms. So again, a lot of options here. It's not letting me choose one because I haven't published my form yet. But again, just wanted to give you guys an overview of what you can expect here. I mentioned the rules. The rules can not only determine what pages that users jump to, but it can also do things like tag a client or remove a tag if a field has a certain value after they fill the form out. It's really cool stuff. Okay, and rounding out version 3 of Forms here, I'll finally show you just some new features that we've added on the fields that are available to you. Primarily the widget section here. We now have a field that allows you to include attachments being uploaded. So this is an example of this might be that you want to send a form to one of your clients or your leads and tell them, hey, upload a picture of X, Y, or Z. Upload a picture of the bushes in the backyard, or upload a picture of your fireplace or whatever. And they can choose their own file from their phone or from their computer, wherever they're filling the form out, and send that to you through this tool. A couple of other options are YouTube video integrations and Wistia integrations. You can now just plug in the share URL of a YouTube video that you've recorded, and it will embed the video into the form. And then same thing for Wistia. Same thing for Wistia. You can plug in your Wistia embed code, and it will just put it into the form. So that's about it for forms. Again, this is a high-level overview for time's sake, because I do want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming in Release 2 and Release 3. Okay, so we talked about Release 1. I want to tell you a little bit about Release 2 here as well. Now, I'll be honest and tell you that from here on out, we're going to be looking at design screens and not live software. And that's just simply because our teams are still building some of the stuff that we're about to be talking about. And so it's not ready to demo live for you yet. So the main thing that will be in Release 2 is what we currently call the client screen. We are renaming clients to accounts, and there's a reason for this. Currently, in Service Autopilot, you have a lead list, you have a client list, you have a former client list, you have a closed lead list, and all of these are essentially different lists. And so what we've decided to do to simplify all of that is bring it all under one list page called accounts. So accounts are now all of those things: clients, leads, former clients, closed leads, etc. And they all just have a hierarchy under the accounts list, and you can now filter to them on your accounts list. This allows you to do some really cool stuff. It allows you to apply specific filters while searching both your canceled clients and your leads, for example. If you wanted to do like a marketing piece to them, a marketing email, and that's not something that you can easily currently do in version 2. And so we've decided to rename them accounts. And what we're looking at here is the account review. And all of those things that I just mentioned, inactive accounts, clients, leads, etc., they're now just a status that you would see on the account page. So here we're looking at Benjamin Wilson's account review. And you can see the patterns are similar. We have the actions on the left. We have an edit screen for this as well. I'm not going to show you that today. But we have all of the information that we need to see about this account on the right-hand side here. And what's really cool, the section that I want to point out primarily to you here on the account review is this section called activity. Let me go to the next screen since it's kind of more in focus here. So in version 2, we have something called the timeline. And it's really great, and we love the functionality that it has, but we felt like it was only giving you one side of the story. It's essentially only showing you the contact back and forth between the customer. And to see things like payment history or service history, you have to go to an entirely separate section of the screen. And what we felt like was not optimal about that is you're not seeing the context of a phone call that a client gives you or an email that they send you, etc. You don't see that context around like what has actually happened on that person's property. And so what we've decided to do on this new activity panel here that we're looking at is we've decided to bring all of that information together. So now on the same activity panel that you see, say, an invoice, you would also see an email that you send to the client. You would also see information about jobs being created, estimates being won, clients being or leads being converted to clients, emails that are being sent in and emails that are being sent out. We'll talk more about that here in a second. Estimates that are being sent. It's all captured within this searchable activity panel. So the search bar here, again, I can't demo this for you today, but if you click into the search bar, you can type in a date, for example, and it would filter down to every single thing that happened on that day and amongst all of those different records. You can also customize this to only show you specific things. Like if you only, for you yourself, if you only ever care about seeing payments and invoices, you could filter that list down and not even have to deal with the other things. Or if you're more of an operations person, you could filter down to say only showing past and future visits. And I'll tell you more about the visits language here as well. So this is the account review. We're really, really excited about this screen. It is very close to being done, but I just didn't quite want to show it to you live yet. And so that's why we're looking at some designs here instead. So another thing that's a little bit different, and it's coming out in the second release, is we have separated the idea of an account and the idea of a property. So they're both easily accessible from the same screens. So in a way, they feel the same. But the benefit of separating them is that we can now allow you to do things like copy all of the property information from one account to the next. So I'll tell you a little bit about a scenario that sort of gave us this idea. If you're in the residential world, then you know that as soon as you lose a client due to them moving or whatever, you want to heavily market to the person that's buying their house, because chances are you've done marketing to the people around that person, you're already working on their properties, and so you want to try to grab that person as a customer so you can keep that revenue coming in for that property. Well, currently you have one of two options. You can create a new client for the new person and manually copy all of the property information over. That's definitely an option. Or you can keep the same client so that all the property information stays and just update the name and the contact information for the person that now lives in that property. But the problem with that scenario is that all of the transactional information is now under the context of the new client. So you're now seeing invoices with the name of the current client on them that were really actually sent to the previous owner of the house, which can create all sorts of accounting and potentially even legal problems if you end up having some sort of dispute with one of those people. And so we're making it easy for you to, I'll go ahead and toggle over here to the property review. We're making it easy for you to transfer all of the information about the property, including property measurements, including custom fields. We now have a new custom field type called property data. And that is where we will automatically convert these things for you. You won't have any extra work to do here, but you can now separate the custom fields that belong to the property, such as square footage, from customer-specific custom fields, such as preferred, let's say for a cleaning company, if you have a client that has a preferred cleaner that they want to come to their property, that information is specific to that person. It's not specific to the property. So you wouldn't want that information to transfer over to the new owner of the house if you retained or reacquired that client. So we're looking at the property review screen here. And as we can see, it's showing us a property cover photo, which is really cool. This functionality exists on the Team app, and so we wanted to carry it forward into the main system here. You can now upload your own cover photo for the property, and that will transfer over to the Team app so that your crews can see a photo of the house they're supposed to be working on from their phone. Again, you see your property data here. Again, the same patterns. You can edit your property. You can review it if all you need to do is review it. So really cool functionality here. The little person icon, again, following the rule that if it's blue, it's clickable. The person icon here toggles you back to the account page. And then here, the house icon toggles you to the property page. So it doesn't really feel like you're going to a new part of the system, but it actually is. And it gives us a lot of options for converting that information to a new client if you were to retain them. So really cool functionality there. So also in R2 will be job information. Now, this is not the dispatch board, but this is, adding a job to a client. Again, I'll go back a couple of screens here. So if I were to click this button that says schedule job, I would get a new job on the account. So this is the job review. Again, following the rules of everything has a review and an edit. This is the job review where I can see things like the line items on that job, the average visit amount that we're going to earn, budgeted hours, etc., what type of schedule it's on, which schedule name. And as you can see, this information is just way easier to see on these new screens than they are in version 2, where everything is kind of condensed down to a little dialog box. You can see the assigned resource. If you were to click the assigned resource here, it would automatically take you over to that team, so you could adjust them and add people to them or remove them. Your schedule here, you can sort from newest to oldest. These are actual occurrences of the job. This screen here kind of puts this into a little bit more focus here. Again, this is your schedule here. You have all of your contact information. This is another thing that we've tried to do, is carry forward contact information into all the important parts of the screen, because we know that a lot of times you're on the phone or you need to get on the phone with somebody based on something that you see on a page, and instead of having to navigate away from that page to get their contact info, you see it right here. The chevrons on the contact card will toggle you between different contacts on the account. So if you have an account and the main contact is Mr. Smith and you call him, he's unavailable, you can just chevron over to Mrs. Smith's contact information and without leaving the page and give her a call. So really cool, really quick ways. Again, the chevron functionality will exist on this as well. So you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to just quickly swap between the jobs that are on the account. This is the job edit. In this instance, we are adding a new job, but it would look the same if we were editing an existing one. We have all the same functionality, the one-time waiting list jobs. We've kind of condensed these down into two options, but all of them are still possible. Your repeating jobs, which would be jobs that are on a schedule, are packages, either one of those. There's a new function here called job name, and this is really cool. Currently, this only exists on work orders, and we really wanted to pull it forward onto every single job type. And so you can now give each job their own unique name. The idea here is that in our minds, if you're scheduling a job together, you want to work it together. And so if you were to create a new job that had, let's say, mowing and edging together on the same schedule assigned to the same crew, then really, in a way, that's kind of like a work order. You can break them apart if you want to, but it is going to group them together into something new that we have called a visit. This is just some more information about the job, your line items here, discounts, products, all of the same functionality that you're used to in version 2. There's a summary panel on the right that lets you kind of see as you add information to the job, it builds a summary for you on the right. As you can see, there is a save draft button here on the job. Again, keep in mind, the plan is to implement the draft functionality from forms onto other records within the system. This will actually not be in the initial iteration of jobs. Okay, so now we're on something new. Well, it's kind of new. It's got a new name and a new concept around it. But this is the visit review. A visit in Service Autopilot does exist today, actually. It just doesn't have that name. And it's created kind of a confusing situation when you're talking to your team, or when you're talking to our support team, or you're talking to a trainer that's teaching you Service Autopilot. Two different things currently have the same name. We have jobs, which are the jobs that are on the actual client. Like if you go to a client's page in version 2 and you see a list of their jobs, we call those jobs. But also if you go to the dispatch board and you see the jobs listed out on the dispatch board, those are also called jobs, but they're really actually different. Internally, and actually in the system, like in the code, they're called job detail records. And so it's confusing because you can change one and it doesn't affect the other. So for example, on the dispatch board, if you change the price of a job, it doesn't change the price of the master job, of the big job. We actually joke in the office, we have jobs and jobs. And we laugh every time we talk about it because it's so confusing, right? And so we've decided to rename one of those, what are currently internally called job detail records. They're now called visits. So we'll go back a couple of steps here. You schedule a job on the client and you give it a schedule, or if it's only a one-time job, you give it a date or a package, and the package has the rounds, and that job creates visits. So this is the master job, and it's kind of been merged into one screen here where you can see what's happening. You have the master job information here, the line items, and then here below, under the schedule, these are the visits. So these are the individual occurrences of us going out to that property to perform that work. We're now calling those visits. So we hope that this will bring clarity. I think potentially for existing users, it might be a little bit confusing, might take a minute to get the new language implemented into your company. But certainly for new users, for new people that you're training and that we're training, it will be much easier to explain that when you edit a visit, it doesn't affect the job, rather than saying when you edit this job, it doesn't affect that job, which is just really confusing. Again, this is one of those things that there will definitely be some learning pain here potentially because of the new language, but we really think that this change is for the better and will create more clarity in the system. So again, this is the visit review. So clicking on this or getting to this screen in version 2, it would essentially be the equivalent of clicking the edit button on a job on the dispatch board. So you click on the edit button and it brings up a dialog box that shows you the information about that one individual occurrence of that job. Instead, you would now get the visit review. And also we have an edit and a review for visits as well, again, following the same pattern. If I were to click the blue icon here, it takes me to the job, as you would expect. If I click the person icon, it takes me to the account related to that. If I click the house, it takes me to the property. So you can see here that all of these things are now, they're being woven in together in a way that it becomes super quick to navigate through the system. You can easily get to the property right from the job. You can easily get to a specific visit of the job right from the job. You can get back to the job right from the visit. And I know I'm kind of going fast here, and so it might sound a little bit confusing, but as you get into the system and start to use it, I think you'll really see how much smoother and an integrated experience it is. Okay, so let's talk, and I apologize about the resolution of these design photos. I'm not quite sure what happened when I put them into my PowerPoint here. Let's talk about R3, because this is a pretty exciting release. This is the release that we still have the most work to do on. Obviously, it's the last one that will happen, but it also contains the most new functionality. So the main thing that will be included in Release 3 is something we're calling tickets. Now, this is both replacing existing functionality as well as adding new functionality. So today in Service Autopilot, we have to-dos. To-dos are now being replaced with tickets. We also have something called calls. Calls are now being replaced with tickets. We have something called notes. Notes are being replaced with tickets. We have emails. Emails are now included in tickets, essentially being replaced by tickets. And you'll see what I mean as we kind of talk about more of what's on the screen here. Touch points, for those of you that have been with us for a really long time and still have touch points, those are now being replaced with tickets. We wanted to take all of this functionality that we have, all of this CRM-like functionality, communicating with a client, and we wanted to bring it all under one unified screen. Again, so that you don't have one user that's always using calls, and then you have another user that's always using to-dos, and they don't understand why they don't both show up together, and they don't understand like what the difference between the two of them is, etc. We wanted to create a unified experience here. And so, as we can see here on the ticket, this is a ticket review. Again, reviews and edits for every record in the system. Same patterns, actions on the left, most important information at the top. If it's blue, it's clickable. A ticket can be all of those things combined. So I can now think of a ticket as a folder, really. It's a folder about a specific conversation or issue with a client. So let's say I were to send an email to a client, like an upsell email that said, hey, we're offering this service now. Do you want to do this service? That would automatically send the email and it would create a ticket for that email. That way, if the customer calls me back and says, hey, I want to talk to you about that email that you sent me. Let's get an estimate put together for that service. You can now pull up the ticket itself of the email and add a call to that ticket. And so the ticket review has its own activity stream here where you can see the process of the conversation. Again, it's searchable. So if I only wanted to search on, a specific subject line of an email or a date or a call or something like that, I can narrow it down that way. And so kind of trying to talk through a use case for this. I guess before I mention that, let me talk about some really cool news. And that is this functionality has been asked for as long as I can remember. And that is integrating with your inbox, with your email. Now, here at first, we will only integrate with Gmail, with Google essentially. What that means is you will be able to connect your Gmail account, whether it's just a regular Gmail account or it can be a the name of it's escaping me right now, but essentially the more professional version that has your domain name in it, G Suite. You can connect your G Suite to Service Autopilot, and what will happen is that it will start to automatically read in emails that are being sent to that inbox. That's number one, it will read the emails in. Number two, what's really cool about it is it will read the email in and it will create a ticket for that email. And it will even, if it's a personal inbox, I guess let me take a step back here. You can connect a personal inbox, meaning, Chris at serviceautopilot.com. I could connect that inbox, and if I get an email to that, it will automatically create a ticket and assign it to me. Or say Jonathan at serviceautopilot.com. He could have a personal inbox connected in Service Autopilot, and any ticket created from that email would assign it to him automatically. Or you can have what's called a shared inbox, and you can attach users to that shared inbox. So for example, support at serviceautopilot.com or info at whatever your company's name is.com. You can connect that Gmail account. And what that will do is create a ticket and assign it to anybody that is on that group, on that shared inbox. It's really, really cool functionality. We've kind of taken a page out of some more dedicated help desk type software, taken a page out of their books here and implemented that into Service Autopilot because we know, we've learned over the years that supporting clients is just as much a part of your business as it is for, say, a software company or a call center. And so we wanted to add this really cool functionality to Service Autopilot. So let me just walk you through a quick scenario here as we're kind of running short on time. In version 3, after the third release of Service Autopilot version 3, if you have a Gmail account integrated, you can send an email out of Service Autopilot. Again, let's say that upsell email, and it will create a ticket with that email logged. And then if they email you back, if they reply to that email and they say, yeah, sure, let's do it. Like let's say it's Christmas lights or something. You're a lawn care company in a southern state, so you don't do snow, and maybe you want to start doing Christmas lights. You send an email blast out, says, hey, we're doing Christmas lights this year. Here's how it works, blah, blah, blah. You send it out, and then they reply to you. Their reply will automatically be attached to the ticket of the original email, the upsell email you sent. It will automatically open that ticket back up and assign it to you. And then let's say in their reply, they said, give me a call. I want to talk about this on the phone. So then within the ticket, you could add a call and log the details of that phone call. You can say, oh, I talked to Mrs. Smith and she said she's really interested, but she has to have a quote. So you can log that call, and that call will also be attached to the same ticket. And then from the ticket, you can see here there's a button that says add an estimate. And so you know, estimates are not in any of the initial releases of version 3. They will still be version 2 estimates. But you can click add an estimate, and it will take you to the estimates portion of the system. And you can create an estimate. And you creating and sending that estimate will be logged within the same ticket. And then if she accepts that estimate, that will be logged within the same ticket. And so the conversation will be tracked throughout its entirety, and it will always be tied back to the same ticket. So there are now 4 statuses. So open essentially means that there's something that I still need to do on the ticket. So the example was a customer sends me an email and it creates a ticket and sets it to open. So I know that I need to send them something back. There's also closed, which is self-explanatory. I send an email, I know there's nothing left to be done on the ticket, I can mark it as closed, and it removes it from my open tickets list. There's also pending, which are, there's 2 more to talk about. There's pending and on hold. What you choose to do with these is your own choice, but I'll tell you how we intend it to work. Pending means that I'm waiting to hear back from the customer. So the example would be, I send an email and I say, hey, Mrs. Smith, are you interested in this service? And I can submit that as a pending ticket, which basically means there's nothing I can do yet. I'm waiting to hear back from them. And then on hold is just the opposite of that. It means they're waiting to hear back from me, but there's nothing I can do yet. So the example of that would be, I send an email to a client and I say, yeah, we can get this done as soon as the product ships to you. I submit that as on hold because, or rather, until the product ships to me. I submit that as on hold, and that goes into my on hold queue. So I know that I need to be checking in with my people to make sure that I can't move forward on that ticket yet. So again, just creating some more clarity, some more granularity on these tickets. Tickets can be scheduled, just like to-dos today can be scheduled and show up on the mobile app for you or for your teams or your crew leaders. It has all of the same functionality as existing to-dos have, and existing calls and notes and touch points. We've taken all of that, and emails. We've taken all of that and wrapped it into this cool new feature called Tickets, which will be very powerful even without the email integration. But with the email integration with Gmail, it's going to just be awesome because you'll now be using Service Autopilot to manage all of your email in your company, and everything will get logged to the correct person. It's just top-notch CRM functionality here, and we're very, very, very excited about it. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about for the 3rd release is the dispatch board. And let's take a look at it here on the screen. As you can see, we have renamed the dispatch board routes. And there's a reason that we did this. We noticed as we've got further along in this project that we had this pattern of everything has a list page, a review page, and an edit page. And so we wanted to keep the pattern for the dispatch board because we started talking about it and we realized that really even in V2, the dispatch board is just a list of your routes. You could say that it's a list of jobs, but it's not just a list of jobs, it's a list of jobs specifically by assignment and by date, which all of those things together we would call a route. And so we decided to name the dispatch board in version 3 the route list, or just routes. And so we can see here that the screen is organized a little bit differently than it is in V2. We now have a collapsed row for every single route. And so a route could be one team, it could be team 1 and team 2, it could be one person, it could be 2 different people together, and that would create a new route on the screen. And you can click and expand each route to see a list of the visits that are assigned to that team for that day. So you're seeing all of the same data and more that you were. And what's really cool is that organizing the screen this way makes this screen much faster because we're not pulling in all of the data of all of your jobs at once. We're able to wait until you click this button to load in every single bit of information about these jobs. And so here we've got 6 teams, but imagine a larger company that has 20 Mo crews. This screen, the current dispatch board, is very, very slow and sluggish. And so with this new design, with the new infrastructure behind this design, it makes the screen very fast regardless of how many jobs and how many crews you have. There's also some benefits to listing it out this way as well. We now see day-wide statistics for a team. So when it's collapsed here, team 1, I now see for the day 11/3, they have clients with $100 account balance, 5 total budgeted hours. The variance column is for multi-day jobs, so you may or may not see that. The total amount of the jobs, the total amount of square footage, etc. And then if I click my down arrow to expand it, that's when I can see details on the individual jobs. This pill here also shows me the progress of the jobs or the visits for the day. So let's say that team 1 was on this property here, 89074. This pill would show me that they had finished 1 of 4. And just the same way, this pill, if they were halfway through their day, would show me 7 of 13. So at a glance, without expanding every single route, I can just at a glance see how far along each one of my teams is throughout the day. And it's really just a much less overwhelming way to approach this screen. And so we're really excited about it. And also, now that we are considering these things to be routes, a day with a team or multiple teams and the visits that are all assigned to them on that day, that is a route. Routes can now have reviews. And so if I were to click team 1 here, it takes me into their route review of the day. And imagine, again, all of the patterns that we've established so far. So we even have the chevrons here. So I could, let's say at the beginning of my day or the end of my day, if I wanted to go review what all of the crews had done for that day and how well their days went, I could click on the first route in the dispatch board and it would give me all their information, like what was done, any comments that they added to the jobs, any extra notes that had been added, the total amount of each service that they were doing, who all worked that route. I could even see the route on a map. And I could then use my chevrons or my arrow keys on my keyboard to flip through each route. We've also, through talking with clients, realized that a lot of the actions that people take on the dispatch board are really happening one crew at a time. So they'll, for instance, take one crew and route all of that crew's jobs, look at it, make sure it's the route that they want, and then dispatch that crew. And then they'll do the next thing, the same thing with the next crew. Route it, make sure they like the way it looks, and then dispatch the crew. And you can, of course, still do that in our new design, but we believe that it's a much better view to do that sort of action from this route review. So for example, I pull up team 1, I could view the jobs on the map, I can make sure that this is the order that I want to do them. If it's not the order, then I could click edit. That's probably somewhere else in this clickable prototype. Oh, we're in a prototype, by the way. This is not live software. We are looking at designs, but they are clickable. Okay, so I had to go back one to make the edit work. Okay, so this is editing a route. And really, editing a route to us, again, following the pattern of reviews and edits, editing the route is ordering the jobs and also adding items from the waiting list to a route. So you can pull up team 1's route. Let me go back one screen. And I could see, okay, we only have 4 visits here. They only have $1,000 of revenue booked for the day. Let's try to get some more jobs onto this route. So I could then edit it. I could see the existing route on a map. I could show the waiting list. I'm not sure if all of this is working the way that I want it to. Okay, now I can click this one. So again, in a live software environment, everything would just be clickable, but there's like a specific order on this prototype. So I show the waiting list, and that now gives me a map that I can draw on to pull in or to view existing jobs on the waiting list that are close by where I'm working. And then I can click on one of the jobs. Imagine me clicking on one of these. I know that this is in the prototype. Well, I can't get to it right now, but essentially what happens is, we'll go back to this screen. If I were to click on this, it would pull that job up in a side panel here, and it would allow me to just, it's the information about the job, what the service was, how many budgeted hours it had, etc. And then I could just add it straight to the route right from there. The other thing that you can do from this screen is click the jobs in the order that you want to do them. That functionality exists in version 2, but we've now pulled it into this edit route screen. So there's a lot of cool things you can do here. Let me go back a step. Suggest route is existing functionality. That's essentially what we call group stops. So it just takes the existing jobs and it puts them in an order as the crow flies. It's the free version of routing in Service Autopilot. But also, we have the existing automatic routing versions. So here from this screen, we have this auto route button that it's not working in the prototype, but essentially auto route is now the way that you route through Google or through TrackRoad, through the routing tokens that you can purchase in Service Autopilot. It takes your visits and automatically puts them in the optimal order. So again, imagine the workflow of at the beginning of your day, you pull up the first route in your list. Again, these chevrons will work. You can arrow between your routes. You look at this. You could even have this up on a big screen, review it with your team, and you could say, okay, here are some new scheduling notes that we have. You could view the note, and it might say, like, make sure to call before you go or whatever. You can view any notes, new notes on a job. You can view any existing comments that have been put on the job. You can make sure you like the route by clicking Show Map. If you don't like the route, you can edit it here or you can auto route it here. And then you just click Dispatch and it sends all of those jobs to the crew. And then you click your arrow key over and it takes you to the next team. That's not what happened in my case. It took me to another version of the design here. So this here is a grid view of the same screen. So I'll go back here. This is more of like a carded out view. If you wanted to, you could click this button and it takes you to more of like a typical grid view that you would have. So you can see it in either view there. There's going to be a lot more that we can show you on this as we get some workable demos happening in the software. But we're really excited about this new functionality, especially given this workflow of looking at and reviewing your team's routes and really being able to get down to adding items from the waiting list right onto the route in the context of where they're going to be on the map. Pulling those waiting list jobs in it just brings more optimization to your workflow. And then also the changes to the list screen, to the route list screen, currently called the dispatch board, is going to make it so much faster. So again, this is coming in the third release along with the ticket functionality that we talked about. So again, quick overview, and then I'm going to wrap up here. We are doing 3 releases of version 3 initially over the course of the next few months. Release number 1 is going to include the accounting screens, invoices, payments, credits, and checks, as well as the new version of forms, version 3 of forms. Very excited about that. The second release is all about the account screen. It's what we currently call the client screen. In the new account screen, we're doing the account review, the account edit, as well as the property review and edit. We talked about the differences between accounts and properties and the reason for separating those, as well as the new jobs screen and the visit screen, which are associated to jobs. Currently, confusing language. You've got master jobs, you've got jobs, or some people call them job detail records. We've cleaned up all the confusion, and we now have jobs, which you would currently think of as master jobs, and visits. Visits are the things that you see when you're looking at your dispatch board or when you're viewing all upcoming jobs on the client. And then finally, in release 3, we're going to be releasing the new ticket functionality. That's a 0-day change. Everyone that has to-dos currently, essentially the Pro subscription or Pro Plus subscription people, will get new tickets. And also the Gmail integration, which really goes along well with tickets because we'll now be reading your emails into Service Autopilot and automatically creating tickets from those emails. So that's all I have to show you today. Thank you for watching. I'm super excited about this. We've been working super hard on this. And so it was a pleasure, really, truly, to get to show you what all we've been working on. Thank you, guys. That's all I've got.
Hey, Joe here from the Service Autopilot training team, along with Mindy from our support department.
We're here because we want to let you know that we're going to be with you every step of the way during the transition from version 2 of Service Autopilot to our new V3. And our support team has been training on V3 for the last several months so that we can ensure there's no interruption in service as you get onboarded, and that happens as quickly as possible.
And it's important to remember that in most places in the system, you'll be able to toggle back and forth between V2 and V3.
So if you need to get something done quickly and you don't quite remember how to do it in version 3, you can hop back over to version 2 and just get it done.
And the only thing, though, that isn't backwards compatible is V3 forms. You can still use V2 forms. We're not turning it off, but we highly recommend that you use V3 forms because we think that they're just light years better.
Finally, both of our departments have added new staff over the last several months. We've done this because we know this is a busy season for onboarding and this transition taking place, and we want to make sure that your service is not interrupted.
We've also brought on a number of new MSRs to make sure that you get help as quickly as possible.
Now back to John and Jonathan.
That was great. We're so excited for you to start using version 3.
This is the biggest leap forward for Service Autopilot in our 10-year history.
Jonathan, that's great, but when are we releasing it?
Version 3, Phase 1, is releasing on February 21st.
And phases 2 and 3 will release shortly thereafter. Version 3 is here.
It's finally here.